Hey, what's going on, guys? So about a month and a half ago, I created a series called Vue.js and Firestore Build and Deploy. And we built an employee manager, which is basically a CRUD application that uses the Firestore platform that is part of Firebase. And I got a lot of requests from viewers and from patrons asking to implement authentication for this application. And I know it's not a huge, hugely popular series, but I really want to fulfill those requests, especially from the patrons. So we're going to do a video where we take the app that we built and implement Vue.js and Firebase authentication so that we can log in and register. Now, there's a couple ways that you can watch this video. You can just watch it and see how it's implemented. You can start from the very beginning with part one of the series and go through that if you haven't already. Or you can just do what I'm going to do in this video and just pull from the repository and get the current application and then just add the authentication to it. Okay, so if we look in my Firebase backend here, you can see I have two users created. I'm going to use this brad@gmail.com. This is the application we'll be building. This is after we add the authentication. You can see we have a register and login link. And then I'm just going to go ahead and log in as that brad@gmail.com user. And it's just going to say you're logged in as brad@gmail.com, and now it's going to redirect us to the dashboard. Okay, so this is the stuff we built throughout the series. We have the list of employees and their department. We can view each one. We can delete them. We can also edit them. If we go down to this edit icon here, we can add them if we hit this plus icon. So it's just a CRUD application, but we're going to implement authentication. You can see we have the logged in user's email up here, and we also have a logout link. And if I try to go to /login while I'm already logged in, it'll redirect us back to the dashboard. Same thing if I try to go to the dashboard while I'm not logged in, it'll redirect us to the login page. Okay, so it'll show you how to implement authentication, how to create routing guards in Vue.js. So if you're interested in Vue, I'd highly recommend watching it and following along. So let's go ahead and get started. Alright guys, so the first thing we're going to do is create our Firebase. I already have the dev one here, but I want to start from absolute scratch so you can follow along. So if you already did this and you still have the application on your machine, then just use that. But if not and you're starting from scratch, let's go ahead and create a new project. And I'm just going to call this emp manager, and we'll create this. Looks like Firebase added this nice little spin preloader thing to their UI. Seems slower though. So let's click continue. Now we have our back end. So from here, what we're going to do first of all is go to authentication, and you actually have to enable authentication. So if we say set up sign-in method, we want the email and password method. So I'm going to click the little pencil icon and just enable this. Okay, that way we will be able to sign up and log in with emails and passwords. Next thing I'm going to do is just create a couple entries in our database and create our collection. So we're using Cloud Firestore, and again, if you have the application already, you already went through the series, you don't have to do this. All right, and we're going to go ahead and start in test mode and enable. Okay, and we'll just add a couple records as well. All right, so let's go and add a collection, and we're going to call this employees. And we're going to have an employee number, or I'm sorry, an employee ID, employee underscore ID, which is going to be a string, and let's say 001. Okay, we'll add another field. This will be the name. We'll say John Doe. Let's add another field. This will be the department. And we'll say IT. We'll add one more field of position, and this will be, let's say, server admin. Okay, so we have a collection now called employees, and we have one record who is the John Doe employee. So let's add one more. I'm going to click add document and add one more employee. So this will be let's say employee ID. Employee ID will be 002, and let's say name, we'll say Mary Williams, and let's add another field. We'll say department, and department will be sales, and position, we'll say sales manager. All right, so let's add her, and now we should have 2 users or 2 employees. All right, so our backend, our Firebase backend is all set. So now what we want to do is grab the application. Of course, if you haven't already built it and still have it on your machine, this is the Git repository for it. It's Vue Firestore Employee Manager, and I could just clone it with Git, but I'm just going to download it with just download the zip file to my desktop. Okay, and then we'll just go ahead and open that up, and let's extract the folder from it, and we'll use that as our application folder. So now what I'm going to do is open this with VS Code. Of course, you can use whatever text editor you want, and we have all the files over here. Now we're going to have to run npm install to install all the dependencies. So what I'm going to do is open up my integrated terminal here. Of course, you can use whatever terminal you want. I'm also using git bash, and I'm going to just run npm install. All right, so that's all set. Now what we want to do is just run the dev server. So we'll say npm run dev, and it should start up on port, I believe it's 8080. Yep, so we'll go and open up a browser, and let's go to localhost and port 8080. Okay, so if you don't already have your application set up, you're going to see this. You're not going to see your employees because we haven't connected our database, our Firestore, to the application. So to do that, we're going to go back to our Firebase and just go to our project overview and click on this icon here, add Firebase to your web app. And we just want to grab everything that's within this config object. So we'll just copy all of that, and then we'll go back to VS Code or whatever you're using, and then we're going to go into source and components, and I put everything in this Firebase config.js file. So I'm just going to replace this because this is the old information. That database doesn't exist anymore. So I'm going to paste all that stuff in and save. And now if we go back to our application, you can see there's John Doe and Mary Williams. All right, so we have our application up to the point that that we had it in the end of the series. So just to test it out, we'll create a new employee. Let's say Sam Smith, Department IT, and we'll say developer. Okay, we'll go ahead and submit. And there we go. All right, so everything's working. Now we're going to move on to the authentication. So the first thing I'm going to do is create a login and a register component. Okay, Vue.js is component-based, just like every other framework, and we're going to create those. So in the components folder, let's create a new file called login.vue. All right, now we're going to put our template in here. And you guys know I hate copying and pasting, but this is just pure markup here. So I'm going to paste in the login form, the Materialized CSS login form. We'll just go over it real quick. So we have a div with a class of container to keep everything in the middle. We have a row. We're using the grid system. It's going to be stacked. It's going to be 12 column div on mobile devices, on small screens, and it's going to be 8 columns on medium screens and higher, with an offset of 2, so it'll be pushed into the middle. And then we just have a div. It's a card panel. I also gave it a class of login, and it's going to be green with white text in center. Then we just have our H3. We have a form with 2 fields, email and password. I'm using the Materialized icons which I think we need to add to the index.html in order to use, but we'll just have the little icons as well, and then a simple button with some materialized classes to make it gray and lighten with black text. All right, so I just didn't want to go through and type all that in. Now for the script of our module, let's put in our script tags. So we're going to say export default, and let's give it a name, name of login. And then we're going to do data, which will be a function, and we want to return. For now, I'm just going to return nothing. We're going to add more to this later. I just want to get it displayed. So let's save this, and now what we'll do is go into our router. So we want to go into the router folder and then index.js, and I'm going to go right below the home right here and create a new route. Okay, actually we have to bring in the component first, so let's say import login from, and then we want to do @components/login. Okay, and I just want to add semicolons here. I'm using Prettier, so when I save, it'll automatically add semicolons. And then for the route, let's finish this. We'll say path. Path is going to be /login, and the name is going to be login, and the component is going to be login. Okay, actually the name will be a lowercase l. So that's that. Let's save it, and let's see what happens if we go to our login route. Let's see. So let's open up our console, see what's going on. Route config component for path login cannot be a string ID. Use an actual component instead. What did I do? Login cannot. Oh, I put quotes around this. All right, let's try that. Whoops, wrong thing. Okay, so let's try and go to /login. And there we go. Now the icon isn't showing up because we need to include the material icons script. So I'm going to search for material icons CDN. And it should be on this page somewhere, right here. So we'll grab this link and go back to VS Code. And let's go to our index.html that's in the root, and I'm just going to put this right below the materialized CSS include and save that. And now we should be able to, if I reload, nope, why isn't it showing? Oh, there we go. All right, let's see. Now these labels, those should be white, so I think I forgot something. If we go back into the template, yeah, the label right here, we just want to add the class of white text. Same thing here. Okay, and that should, you know what, let me close this other browser. Okay, so now we have our login form. Now we might as well create the register form. It's going to be pretty much the same thing, just gray. So what we can do is just copy. We'll just copy everything here and create a new component file called register.vue. And we'll paste that in, and we'll change the h3 to register. And let's also change, let's see, we'll change this from green to gray, and let's do a lighten -4. Okay, and we also want black text. And we want to get rid of this white text on the label now. And we'll also change this to register. Let's go down to our script tag. Let's change the name here to register and save. And then we're going to add the route just like we did for the login. So we'll just take this and copy it down, And let's change this to /register. This will be register. And the component which we need to bring in will be register. Alright, so let's go up top here and we'll go ahead and just copy this down. And we'll bring in register. Sorry about that. Let me put this on vibrate. Alright, so this will be from components /register. So now that route should work as well, hopefully. So let's try it out. If we go to /register, there we go. Alright, now let's add these as navigation links. So we're going to go to our navbar component, which is right here. And we need to add a bunch of stuff to this. So under the, let's see, we'll go right under the router link here. And we're going to have a UL with the class of right, because we want our links to go to the right. And we want some list items, and inside these list items we're going to have some links, but remember we need to use the router link. Okay, so we'll say router-link, and this one is going to be to the dashboard, so we're going to give it a to attribute, and it's going to go to just / and we'll say dashboard. Alright, and then we'll copy down, let's do, yeah, we'll do 2 more. So this one will be login, and it'll go to /login, and this one will be register. Alright, so let's save that, see if those show up. Okay, so now we can switch between login and register. Good. And we can see the dashboard, but don't worry about that. We just want to get the actual login and sign up functionality done first, and then we'll hide the dashboard and all that. All right, so now what we need to do is go into, let's do the register first. Okay, so we'll go into our register component that we just created, and we're going to go down to where our script is. And first thing we want to do here is right above the export default, we want to import Firebase so that we can use it. So we're going to say import Firebase from Firebase. Okay, and then for our data, we're going to have an email and a password property. So we're going to say email, just set that to nothing by default. Same thing with password. And then underneath the data, we want to put a comma and we want to put methods. Okay, so we're going to have a register method. So that'll be function. And I'm going to pass in an event parameter here. And then let's just do e.prevent default. And what we want to do here, let's actually just do a console log for now. So we'll say console log register. All right, now in order to call this, we want to go up to our button and we want to add in a v-on directive. So let's say v-on. So we want to say on click, we want to call register. And we also want to bind this email and password to these input fields. So we're going to use vModel for that. So on the input field for email, let's do v-model and email. And if you watch the series, this should be nothing new. And then same thing with the password. So v-model password. Okay, and that should do it. Now we should be able to actually submit to this register method. So let's save that. Let's go back to Chrome and go to register, and we could just put whatever in here and register, and you can see down here we're logging register. Alright, so now what we want to do is implement Firebase. So we'll get rid of the console log. And what we want to do is call Firebase.auth dot, and then we want this create, let's see, does it pop up for us? Yeah, create user with email and password. That's a very long function name. And then we want to pass in this dot email, which is our email property, and this dot password, which is our password. Okay, that's going to return a promise. So we want to do a dot then, and inside here it'll give us a user. I'm just going to use an arrow function here, and then once it gives us the user back, I'm just going to do a simple alert, and we'll put some backticks in here, and we'll just say account created for, and then we'll put in our variable. We can take that user object and we can use email, so user.email. Okay, once we do that, we just want to basically reload the page. Well, actually, you know what? You'll see why we have to just reload later, but for now, I'm just gonna redirect. Okay, so I'm gonna say this dot router dot push, and let's go to the home page, so slash, or the dashboard. All right, and then if there's an error, we can go ahead and actually we want to go underneath. We want to go right here, put a comma, and say error. So if there's an error, we will alert the error message like that. All right, and I think that should do it. So let's save. And I'm using Prettier, so when I save, some things will get changed up. Sometimes it's not what I want, but for the most part, it's a pretty great extension. So let's try this out. Let's go to register, and let's put something in here. So I'll do Brad. Let's do brad@yahoo.com. Not a real email address. And then I'll just put a password in and register. Account created for Brad@Yahoo, and OK, and we get redirected. So what it did is it created an account and it actually logged us in. Now if I go to my Firebase backend and I go to authentication, you'll see right here brad@yahoo.com. So it's that easy to register. All the stuff that we just did, creating the form and all that's all for the UI, but the actual registration is this right here. So pretty simple. But I like to do things, you know, from beginning to end. So I didn't want to just show you guys this. I want to actually do a practical project. All right, so now let's do the login. So what we'll do is let's go to our login.vue file. And we can actually copy what we did in register because it's very, very similar. So let's see. Let's grab data and the methods, which end right here. So I'll copy that and put that in the login. I'll just replace this data right here and paste all that in. And again, we're going to have our email and password, and we need to go up above and do the same stuff. So for the button, we want a V on click. So V on click equals, and it's going to be a function called login. And then we also want to bind our email and password. So we want to go to the input and do a V model equals password. And for the email, V model equals email. Okay, and then down here, let's change the name of the method to login. And instead of, we need to bring in Firebase as well. Okay, so instead of calling auth.createUser with email and password, we want to call auth.signin, or is it sign in with email and password, and then again pass in the email and password, gives us a promise, gives us the user. We're going to say instead of account created, we'll say you are logged in as, and then that user. Okay, and then we'll just push to the dashboard. So that should work. So we'll save that. And if we go back, let's go to login. Now, let's see what happens if I just try to log in. So we're going to get the message directly from Firebase. So it just says the email address is badly formatted. If I were to put something in here that doesn't exist in Firebase, like test@test.com, the password is invalid or the user does not have a password. Okay, if I were to put something that exists, like brad@yahoo.com, but have a wrong password, we'll get the password is invalid, same thing. But let's do the correct password. And it says you are logged in as brad@yahoo. Okay, so we are in fact logged in. So now what I want to do is create a log out button. So let's go back to VS Code and let's go to our nav bar. And let's see, up here, let's go under the register and create an LI. And then we're actually going to put a button in here. So I'm going to say button. I'm going to give it a class of btn and black. And we'll just say login. I'm sorry, log out. And we want to add a vOn directive here in the button. So vOn click is going to equal a method called logout. All right, now we have to go down here and create all of our stuff, our script tags, and we need to bring in Firebase. All right, and what we want to do is export default, and let's say name navbar. Basically, before it was just a dumb component. It had no functionality or anything. It was just a display, but now it's going to have some functionality. So for the data, we want to say return, and there's going to be two pieces of data. One is logged in, because we want to be able to hide certain navigation items based on if we're logged in or not. So we'll set that to false to start with, and then we also want current user, and we'll set that to false. Okay, and then what we want to do is create our logout method. So I'm going to go under the data and say methods. So we'll do methods, and we'll have logout. Okay, so to log out, we're going to take our Firebase object and we're going to call .auth, and then we're going to do .signout, and then that'll give us a promise. So we need to do .then, and inside here, I'm just going to use an arrow function, and let's say this.router.push, and we'll go to our login, so /login. All right, so let's try that. We'll save, and let's see. All right, so if I reload, if we log out, it should take us back to login. Now we can still go to dashboard and everything. We need to create a guard so that we can't do that, so that we can only go to the dashboard and any other page really if we're logged in. So let's go ahead and implement that. So to do that, we're going to go to our router, which is the router folder index.js, and we want to import Firebase here. All right, and then any routes that we want to protect, we want to add a meta object to. So for the home, let's say meta, and we're going to say requires auth, and we're going to set that to true. Okay, anything that we want to protect where you have to be authenticated, we want to add this to. So let's copy this. Let's also add it to new employee, view employee, and edit employee. Okay, so we want that for all of those. Now, I also don't want you to be able to go to login or register if you're a guest or if you're not logged in. So what I'm going to do is I'm also going to paste meta in here, but I'm going to change this to requires guest. Okay, so we'll do that here as well. So requires guest. Okay, now that alone isn't going to do anything. We need to actually create our guard. So let's go down here. We'll say nav guards. So the way that this is set up, we're saying export default new router. And we don't actually want to do that now because we need to add a method or use the before each method of the router. So we need to put router into a variable. So instead of exporting it here, what we'll do is we'll say let router equals and then the new router and so on. So that way we can go down here and we can use that router variable, and we can now call dot before each. Okay, now before each takes in a few things. I'm going to use an arrow function, so it takes in to, from, and next. Okay, so we'll use an arrow here, and then basically we want to check for required auth guard. So to do that, we can say if, and we can say if to. We can take that to object, which is right here, and it has a method called matched. So to.matched.sum, and then this gives us a record. So record, and I'm going to use an arrow function here, and then we're going to say record.meta dot, and then whatever the guard was, which is requires auth. Yeah, we want requires auth. Okay, so if this is true, that means that the route requires authentication. So now we want to check to see if we're actually logged in to Firebase. Okay, so we're going to say check if, in this case, if not logged in. So we can do that by saying if not, and then use our Firebase object. So firebase.auth.current user. Okay, it's as easy as that to get your user from Firebase, firebase.auth current user. We're saying if not, okay? And if it's not, then we want to go to the login page. And we're going to do that by calling next. Okay, so right here we have this next to call, but we want to pass in an object with a path that we want to redirect to, which will be /login. All right, and then we're also going to add a query here, which is an object, and we're going to say redirect to dot the full path. Okay, so that what will happen is if we're not logged in, it'll redirect us to the login. Okay, and then we want an else to this right here. Else meaning that we are logged in. Then all we have to do is proceed to the route by calling next. Okay, so that's it. Now the next thing I want to do is test for the requires guest, and that's going to be the opposite. It's gonna redirect us if we are logged in. Okay, because we don't want to go to the register or login page. So we're going to do an else if right at the end of this. So else if, and then we can basically just let's grab that, and paste that in, except we're going to change it now to requires guest, like that. So if it requires guest, then let's see, we can actually copy what we put in here. Yeah, we can copy that and paste that in, except now we're going to check to see if the user is logged in. So check if logged in, and we'll remove the exclamation. So if they're logged in, then we want to redirect them to the dashboard, to slash. Okay, else then proceed to the route. Now if there is no requires auth or requires guest, we want to call next. So after this else if right here, which ends right here, we'll just put a simple else, and we'll just say, we'll just grab this right here and say proceed to the route. Okay, so hopefully that makes sense. I don't know why this comment is down here. So just to reiterate, if it's going to check for requires auth. If the route has requires auth attached to it, it's going to make sure we're logged in. If it's not, then it'll redirect us to the login page. If it has requires guest and we're logged in, and we try to go to that, which is login or register, it'll redirect us to the dashboard. If it doesn't have either one, then it'll just proceed to the route. So hopefully that makes sense. Now the last thing we need to do is actually export the router. Okay, because remember we changed the export above to just assigning it to a variable. So now we want to export default router, like that. Okay, so hopefully that works. So now let's go to our application, and let's see, if we go to dashboard, so we're not logged in right now. If I go to dashboard, let's try to go to it manually. We can't. Now let's log in. Okay, so we're logged in, okay, and now we're in the dashboard. So it seems to be working, and we should be able to go to all of our other routes as well because we are logged in. Okay, if I log out and I try to go back, I'll just click on it here. It doesn't let us. If I try to go to /new, which is the new add new employee page, I can't do that either. So everything is now restricted. Now let's try if we are logged in. What is it, Yahoo? Let's make sure that we can't go to the login page. Okay, so if I say /login, we can't do it. If I say /register, can't do it. All right, now we do have another problem here. If I were to, now we're logged in, if I were to reload, it actually does take us to the login page because it's not checking for the user before it loads. So we actually have to go into our main.js file, which is right here, okay, where it's actually initializing Vue, and we have to check for the user. Or not check for the user, but check to see if the authentication state has changed. So we're going to do a couple things. We're going to bring in Firebase. I know this is kind of a lot to do, but it's necessary to get the functionality that we want. So we want to bring in Firebase. Now you also need your Firebase config, or initialization, I should say, which is in this Firebase init file. Okay, this is where we initialize the app. So we're also going to bring in that file. So let's do import, and it's in the components folder, and then it's Firebase init. Okay, so now what we're going to do is basically wrap this in the on/auth state changed Firebase method. So let's just do this up top first. So we're going to say let app. We're going to initialize a variable called app, and then we're going to say Firebase dot auth, and we're going to call on/auth state changed. Okay, and then we're going to pass in a function. I'm just going to use an arrow. It takes a user. Okay, so we'll go like that, and then we're going to check to see if not app. So we're going to say if not app, then we want to set that app variable to our Vue initialization. So this right here. So what I'll do is just copy, or I'll just cut this actually. We can get rid of this. So I'm going to cut that and put that in this app variable now. Okay, and then yeah, I think that should work. So let's save, and then let's go back to our application, and let's see, we're logged in, right? So if I reload, now you see it doesn't go back to the login screen. We're still in the dashboard, which is what we want. If we go to another page and reload, we stay in that page. So that fixed that. All right, guys, so we're almost there. Now, what the last thing we need to do, I'm pretty sure it's the last thing, we need to fix our navigation. We're logged in right now, so there's no sense in having login and register. And if I log out, we don't want log out and dashboard. Okay, that doesn't make much sense. So let's fix that. So what we'll do is go to our nav bar, which is right here. And let's see, remember we have the is logged in and current user. What we want to do now is call the created method or created function, which will run right when the component is created. So in here, I want to test to see if we're logged in. So we can do that. We brought in Firebase already right here. So we can say if Firebase.auth dot current user, that means we're logged in. So if that's true, then let's set this dot is logged in, this property right here, let's set that to true. Okay, let's also set this dot current user equal to Firebase dot auth dot current user, but we only want the email. This will give us the entire object. I just want the email, and we'll put it in there. Okay, now what we can do is we can go up above to our links, and we can add a directive. So for the dashboard, we'll say vif. We'll say vif is logged in. Okay, then show that link. This is the login link here, so we'll say v dash if is not logged in, so exclamation is logged in. Then we want to show that login link. Same with the register. So is not is logged in. And then the logout, obviously we want to show that if we're logged in. So that'll be is logged in. Okay. So let's save that. And if we go back, you'll see now the logout link and the dashboard it's hidden. Now if I log in, okay, now notice that the nav bar did not change, because what happened is the nav bar didn't re-render. If I reload it, we see it works, but it doesn't re-render right when we log in. And that's, remember I said that later on I'm not going to want to just push to redirect. I'm going to want to reload everything. So so what I want to do is go to our login component. We're going to do this in a couple places actually, and see where we did the push. That is not going to re-render the nav bar. So what I want to do is I want to change this to this.router.go, and you guys might have a better solution to this or just to anything else, and feel free to let me know, but this is just what I found worked. So if we say this.router.go and then pass in a path of this dot router dot path, that will actually reload everything, re-render everything, including the nav bar. So what I'll do is copy this and save, and we want to do the same thing in a couple other places. One of those places is the register, okay, because we want the nav bar to re-render there as well. So we'll paste that in here, and then we also want to do it. Let's see. Let's go to our nav bar component, and right here when we log out, we also want to do that. Save that, and I think that's it. I'm trying to think of all the situations we have: login, register, log out. I think that should do it. So let's log out. All right, so now the correct links are showing. If I log in now, it's Yahoo. Okay. And there we go. So now we have the correct links right away. We don't have to reload the page. All right, same thing if we log out. There we go. If we sign up, let's do test@test.com and register. And there we go. So now we're logged in. One thing I did forget to do is the email address. I want to show that up here. So let's go back to our navbar component. And all we have to do is create a new list item. So we'll go, let's see, let's do it at the top. Yeah, we'll do it right above the dashboard link right here. And we're going to do, for this list item, a vif. So this is logged in. So if we're logged in, then let's see, we're just going to put a span here with the class of email and the class of black text. And then inside here we can simply put current user. Okay, and that current user is this property, which is getting filled here with whatever the current logged in user is. Now I just want to add a little padding to the right. So remember I gave it the class of email. So what I'm going to do is put a style tag in here, and we can say scoped, and let's say .email padding right. Let's do 10 pixels and save. Let's take a look, and there we go. So we're logged in as test@test.com. Okay, if I were to log out and go as Brad, then that's what shows up there. All right, guys, so we have successfully added authentication to this app. I know this was kind of a long video. Hopefully you stuck with me through it. And I will wait to push this to the GitHub repository so that you guys can actually get the old version of the app without the login, and then you can go in and follow along and you can add it yourself. All right, so thanks for watching, guys, and I will see you next time. Hey guys, if you've been watching my videos for a while and you really like what I do and I've helped you out a lot, consider becoming a patron. Even for $1 per month, it pushes me to keep bringing you guys the best content I possibly can. There's reward tiers for discounts, free Udemy courses, personal support, and more. So check out the Patreon link in the description below for more info.